why do blind babies miss their motor milestones? How does it impact academic performance? And really, what can we do about it? That's exactly what we are going over in today's video. Hi, I'm Cassie Maloney. I'm the founder of the Society of Exceptional Educators, this YouTube channel. Hi. And as well as I'm an orientation and mobility specialist with a background as a TVI. And I want to break down some things that are pretty important, not only because motor development is really important for us to be able to get around and move around, but if you have a child or a student who has a visual impairment, you could be wondering, why? Like, what's really up? Or a lot of times we just act really jaded and say, well, it is the way that it is. But it's not just the way that it is. And there are ways that you can help your child or your student who has a visual impairment to be able to increase their motor skills without you having to like go over the moon or become a PT or like learn really intricate things. They're really simple. It's just how you implement them. And really, I want to break this all down for you because what we don't realize oftentimes is that motor development has a direct implication on academic performance. And you wouldn't necessarily equate the two, and I'm going to break that down for you as well. So stick with me. Today is going to be really fun. As always, we're going to do presentation style. I really like this presentation style, and it's been really fun for me to show these things to you guys in this manner. If you like it, please leave a comment below and we'll know to keep doing it. And if you don't, leave a comment and let me know that too. And today specifically, we're going to be going over the typical motor milestones for sighted children. Why not for blind children? Because motor milestones are normed on sighted, able-bodied people. So that's why. And then I'll also be walking you through, is there a norm for blind children? Then we're also going to be talking about what exactly motivates movement, like scientifically, right? If we want to get our children to be moving more, how do we get them to do that? How movement directly impacts academic performance, and then what you can do about it. So typical motor milestones in sighted children. This document is from Stanford Med. And I liked it a lot because you can see all the different areas. We're really going to be focusing on motor here, but the source is linked below. You can just Google it. It's pretty easy to find. At 2 months, it says that they should be lifting their head and chest when in prone, which is on their belly. Their eyes track past midline for as far as fine motor goes. At 4 months, rolling front to back. So take note of these things because we're going to come back to it. And then fine motor grasping a rattle. At 6 months, we've got sitting with little to no support, and then reaching with one hand, transferring objects, and developing an immature pincer grasp. At 9 months, we've got the ability to pull to stand, and then bringing two objects together. And then at 12 months, roughly, our children start walking. And then there's fine motor is the pincer grasp, which we're not really focused on today. And then it goes all the way down 15 months, 18, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, up to 5 years old, they're able to skip. This is all in that same document. And then the question becomes, okay, so why do we see a lag? Is it because their vision? Is it because their body doesn't develop? The thing that you have to know about motor development, which was really fun to learn about when I did my master's degree almost 20 years ago, don't even talk to me about it, but I still love, is that motor development is multi-causal. And so you're only going to see the actual skill when all of the bone has the correct muscle mass, the muscles are developed properly, the tendons are developed properly, there's not a contraction in the muscles or in the tendons, and when the baby's brain is also at the ability to make the body move in that manner. So you've got all of these things happening underneath, and then that's when you start to see that actual movement skill. And so when we're looking at why does this lag, is it a matter of the body, or is it a matter of the brain, or is it a matter of vision? Well, let's look at one of my, oh my gosh, my all-time favorite studies that was done, that is in 1993. Most of the studies done on this stuff were in like the 90s, maybe early 2000s. So we're going back a minute, okay? But our profession doesn't have as many researchers because we just don't have as many people. But Trosser and Bramberg did a study in 1993 that specifically said that children with visual impairments, motor development is parallel to those without visual impairments until 4 to 6 months of age. What happens again at 4 to 6 months of age? We'll talk about that in just a second, but it's because of the lack of motivation to move. So we're going to talk about what happens at 4 to 6 months and then talk about motivation to move. That's an interesting concept, isn't it? Well, at 4 to 6 months, what do babies typically do? We just saw in the last slide that that's when babies are starting to sit up. That's when babies are starting to reach outside of their bodies. So the way that spatial awareness develops is it develops close into your body first. And as orientation and mobility specialists, that's how we teach it. We teach close into our body. What is this body part? And then we extend outward. And so babies, their bodies are actually fine. It's the lack of motivation to move that gets them. So how can we make our babies move better? First and foremost, we have to understand what makes babies move. And I don't typically take quotes from the Google AI generated thing, right? I typically skip through that, but this was kind of good and it did summarize everything that I wanted it to summarize. So it's not the most credible source. It's picking and choosing from a bunch of different sources, but that's what we've got. And I like the fact that it says that a baby's desire to move stems from a combination of developmental reflexes, brain development, and the natural desire to explore and learn about the world. Think about where all of those come from, right? Because if we're going to have to get our babies to move better, how can we do so in a way that replaces what we can replace? Initially, movements are primarily reflexive and involuntary, which we know, but as the nervous system matures and develops, they become more purposeful. It was actually pretty good, right? Okay, I like it. Then we're going to look at this study that was all about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. As you may know, intrinsic motivation is more like internal. Extrinsic motivation is external. And when we're looking at internal motivation, what drives us to do things internally? And what drives us to do things externally? As an adult, you might have heard of the 4 tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. That's a really great way to break down intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation as to why adults do things. But why do babies? At their core, why would they move? What would propel them? This is actually something that's interesting that I wanted to bring up to you guys, and it says that intrinsically motivated behaviors are computationally similar to externally motivated behaviors, and that they strive to do 2 things, both internal and external, strive to do the same things: maximize reward, minimize punishment. Now, I'm not just saying reward as in like a treat, punishment as in like a spanking, but like anything good is a reward. Anything unwanted is a punishment. And then it also goes on to say that their understanding of neurocognitive mechanisms that underlie intrinsically motivated behavior remains limited. So, okay, we know that an understanding of what intrinsically motivates people is limited, but that intrinsic and extrinsic motivations basically do the same thing. That's good. Let's look at this here. I'm just going to cover up the word motivation. Okay with that? I did not spatially plan this very well, but it's gonna be fine, and I'll try to remember to make a little circle next time so I remember my face when I'm making these slides. So when we look at intrinsic motivating factors, and I did a bunch of research on this, what we're looking at as far as these babies go is curiosity, as well as natural motor development process, right? It makes them want to move, and interaction with caregivers. Those were the 3 biggest things. But as far as extrinsic motivation, it's also curiosity. We've got positive reinforcement, playing with toys, environmentally accessible areas. So they have to have the area set up in order for them to be able to do that. And interaction with caregivers. Again, that is a positive reinforcement. That's a reward. So when we're looking at what's going to motivate our babies, whether it's internally or externally, the thing that we know is, okay, it doesn't just have to be them. And it doesn't just have to be us. It does have to be a combination. We do have to set up the environment. The extrinsic reward or the extrinsic motivation is that they're not going to get hurt. You don't want to leave your scissors laying around or thumbtacks or things like that. But internally, they have to do some work too. Now, if internally they're scared, if internally they did get hurt last time they tried crawling, because if you think about how vulnerable a crawling position is, they're on their hands and knees, and oh my gosh, we could have an entire segment on crawling. I'm not going to get into that today, but think about them crawling. They're on their hands and knees and their head is exposed. So a lot of times what you'll notice is that babies with visual impairments skip crawling. And again, it has a whole other layer of implications. We could go into that for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. We're not going to today. But if we can make the environment accessible to minimize the punishments and then create an environment and situations that are rich in positive rewards, like happy interactions with caregivers and toys, then we can draw out that intrinsic motivation and help our little babies move. So let's talk a little bit about that. But first, why is it so important for our babies to move? This one is such a big thing, and I want you to have an understanding of why. Like, is movement tied to anything else? And this, I mean, if my entire professional career goes down on one image, I want it to be this one. I do. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it because it just puts everything into perspective. So what you're looking at is a pyramid of learning. And all that I did was I took something from an OT book. It's called How Does Your Engine Run? And I turned it into something that my brain understood, which is the metaphor of the glacier. Okay. And I just took something from an OT book. It's called How Does Your Engine Run? And I put it in a framework that my brain can understand, which would be this iceberg. So what we see at the very top is the cognition and intellect. We see the academic learning. We see the daily living skills. We see the positive behavior. But under all of that lies an entire world that we don't see. Let's go from the bottom up, and you'll start to see why I'm harping on motor development so much. So we've got our nervous system at the very bottom, right? Our central nervous system, our peripheral nervous system. And then we've got our sensory systems, the visual, the olfactory, the auditory, and the proprioceptive and vestibular and the tactile. Want those in there. This might be the first time you're hearing those words. That's A-okay. I'll bring them up more so that you have a better understanding. But proprioceptive is like an understanding of where your body is in space, and vestibular is your balance. And then, and it's not to say that if you don't have one of these, you can't progress. It's just to say that if you're not seeing academic skills, this is probably why. Sensory motor development, right? Their understanding of their body schema, their ability to screen input and like stay in their chair. Have you ever seen kindergartners who are like learning to stay in a chair and they can't? Well, yeah, of course, their vestibular system is like wackadoodle. They literally don't, their body can't like sit in a chair for very long because their vestibular system is not mature enough. And then we've got perceptual motor development. And so this is the area that I want us to really look at. Like ocular motor control might be one of them, hand-eye coordination. We've got attention center functions, postural adjustment, visual spatial perception, auditory language. And so when you're looking at motor development, right, it's underneath this academic learning. So the way that I like to look at it is kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And yes, I totally took the picture that had Wi-Fi as the very bottom need. Whoever you are, I love you for this. This is obviously an interpretation of Maslow's hierarchy, but it fits for today's day and time, because if you don't have Wi-Fi, you can't, there's no sense in even trying for motor development. I'm kidding, obviously. But like, you know how in Maslow's hierarchy, we have to have the psychological safety first, and then at the very top, then we can have self-actualization. It's the same thing. You have to have your motor systems knowing where they are and being able to move. And honestly, that's what crawling does help with, because crawling puts a lot of pressure on your wrist. And when you have pressure on your joints, it tells your brain where you are. So, okay, that's the only thing I'll say about crawling. But when you can have that, then you can have what's at the top. Same thing with Maslow's hierarchy. And so what I want you to walk away with from this with isn't like, oh my God, my baby's not crawling, my baby's not crawling, I have to fix it. No, just an understanding that if you're not seeing the academic skills that you think your child should be displaying right now, it might not just be the academic skills. It might be that their body doesn't know where they are. It might be that their body is too tense. It might be that their body's too loose. It might be that they had delayed motor development. And so what you're seeing later is delayed academic development. And that's okay. You're going to teach or love that child where they are, and then make a plan to move forward. I'm not trying to stress you out. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of a scientific understanding as to why this is happening. But as always, let's get down to the bottom of this. How can you support motor skills? And everything that I'm going to suggest is going to be pretty easy, to the point where if you're like, Cass, I know that. Good. We know what to do. Just like eating an apple a day isn't hard, but try getting me to eat an apple a day after I've logged my macros, and it's not happening. I don't want to eat it. I don't like it. Seems like the most gross thing in the world. Going to the gym every day, not hard. We know we should be doing it, but are we doing it? And so these things may not be difficult. The difficulty is going to be in staying consistent with them, or hearing yourself talk a lot. Let's be honest. So babies, right? First and foremost, we want to set up a successful environment for babies. And I want you to start all of these things as soon as possible. I'm really only going to be talking about the younger years because that's what this video is focused on. And if you're seeing issues later on in life, it's probably because you need to come back down to these fundamentals. So setting up the environment for success might look like, yes, of course, doing all the normal baby proofing, whatever, but then just also not moving the furniture around. Please stop moving furniture around. Thank you. Also, if you're a parent, auditorily describe your actions to give the child information that they wouldn't get incidentally. We know that 90% of everything that we learn is learned incidentally by watching it. And so when you compare, oh, mama's getting a knife out of the drawer and mama's making a sandwich. Oh, do you hear that sizzle? The chicken went into the grill, or the chicken went into the pan, things of that nature. Then we can start to give all of those noises a name for our children. And yeah, it's a lot of talking though. I'll say yes, it is. And sometimes it's the end of the day. You just want to make your dinner. I get that. Just do it as much as you can. Also, finding motivating toys. So anything that has like bright lights, anything that has sounds, and this is for babies, but also for those older children as well, to get them engaged and take time to just, play with your child, encourage their movement. That's really what they want, is that time with you and your attention. And I'm going to suggest, don't come after me, but to let your baby explore. Oftentimes as parents, we just want to do the best for our children. And I will be 100% honest, there's like this weird phenomenon, especially in America, where if your child gets hurt or they're doing something wrong in other parts of the world, the adults look at the child. But in America, if your child gets hurt, especially if you have a child with a disability, it's like all eyes on you. And I know that you're carrying that level of responsibility. You don't want your child to get hurt. And I get that. Nobody wants any child to get hurt. Well, all I'm suggesting is that if your baby is starting to move and you notice that you're impeding them, like, oh, don't do that, oh, don't do that, oh, don't do that, oh, don't do that, oh, don't do that. See if you can take a breath and pause before you stop them. Because the more you stop them, the more it creates learned helplessness. If you're a parent, drop a comment below. If your blood is boiling and I'm saying something that you don't like, tell me. Let's tell all the other parents, what did you do that worked? And we can start a support group, support network here in the comments of this video. Now, when we're looking at young children, toddlers, young children, I'm going to suggest that they start to do things earlier than you might even anticipate. I like to look at the Montessori protocol and then take that for all children and not take the normal protocol that we have for children's independence. But Maria Montessori knew what she was doing. You can look up her rules, her regulations, and inspiration. But when you go into a Montessori school, you'll see a bunch of 2-year-olds taking their little flimsy tray and taking it all the way to the trash can. And by the way, eating off of it, no matter what color it is, no matter what shape it is, no matter what shape their food is, they're eating it. I don't know how these schools get these kids to do this stuff. I don't know. But looking at what they are actually doing and see if you can pick 1 to 2 daily living tasks that your child can do. Encourage their independence. And again, yes, as parents, sometimes this is scary for us, but I'm encouraging you to feel that feeling in your body as they're young, so that way it's not new as they get older. Maybe it's just that you let them shampoo their own hair with a baby safe shampoo, or maybe it's that you have them brush their own teeth, at least at first, and then you go back behind them, or maybe it's that you have them put on their jacket. Allowing these moments of independence, and that is going to take some time. So budget in that time. I know, right? It's easy, but it's also not easy. And then also keep their rooms organized and labeled in their learning media. If you don't know your child or student's learning media, talk to their teachers, students with visual impairments. There's typically a learning media assessment, an LMA, that has been done. And what you want to do is carry that over into the home. If I am preaching to the choir, I'm so glad that you're here. Let's keep chugging along. But then I also want you to label your entire house with their learning media. Yes. If they are a Braille reader, Braille out the washer, the dryer, the cabinets, the dresser, so that way they can just skim it and they can just come across these words, because children who are sighted are coming across these words often. So what we need to do is increase the literacy skills of our children, but we do that in a way that makes their environment accessible. And why I'm suggesting this, because you're like, Cass, that's literacy. Yes, it is literacy, but what are we doing? We are decreasing punishments. We are increasing rewards. Increasing rewards looks like that your child knows where things are. If they come across the word dresser and you say, oh, that's the dresser, then you're pairing their literacy and the word all together. And if it's a picture symbol, if it's something else, pair their literacy media with that actual thing. And that way it'll help them to understand more of where things are in space. That's why I suggested not moving the furniture too much. And the last slide. And of course, encouraging them to move. Here's what's going on. When your child exists, right? Every single time that they go to do something, I've watched my hand move so many times, right? In just a minute. You have to then create an environment where you can kind of keep up with all of those times that they did move or that they didn't move, because that happens on a tiny moment-to-moment basis. And so what you want to do is take all of these movement activities. They don't have to be a separate activity. I'm encouraging you just to do a tiny thing, but often, because occupational therapy has found that sensory integration, when we want that to be actually integrated into our children's lives, it happens little by little, but it has to happen often. So that's exactly what I'm suggesting here for you too. And again, for older young children, we want to create a motivating environment, create motivating movement routines that your child loves. And here's a fun idea that has worked with every single child that I've used it with, is to create an experience story with the steps of that movement routine, again, in their learning media. And then what you can do is you can read that book at night, you can read that book right before nap time, and get them excited for their movement routine. They might do it at that time, they might do it later. If they equate that movement story with the movement routine, you might want to do it right before you do the movement routine, or figure that out. But I love incorporating experience stories with movement. And yeah, somehow this turned into a literacy video. I'm not really sure, but we're rolling with it. And again, setting up the environment so that they have success. Now, am I saying to keep everything sharp away from them and not let them touch knives? No, I'm not. I'm saying let's find ways that you can start to step back, give them independence when they want it, and find ways that you can come into their world, create a shared experience, and so you guys can have your shared third thing and build your relationship, because that's what they really want, and use those motivating factors, their desire for independence and their desire for your care, your love, your attention, your affection, and use those to increase their independence. I hope that this has been really helpful for you. I absolutely love sharing these videos. If this is the kind of thing that interests you, and maybe you're working with a child or a student or an adult who has a visual impairment, or maybe you are a caregiver yourself, I encourage you to join the society. And what it is really our newsletter being delivered to your inbox. What I do is I take this video and then I break it down exactly step by step how you can use it, depending upon if you are a general ed teacher or if you're an expert. And that gives you tangible tips on how to move forward with this information. You can take the video, you can watch it, you don't have to watch it. And then you also receive quarterly webinars that we do if you want to dive deeper, and discounts on our paid program. So we won't be bothering you too much. We really just are gathering all these people who care about children and adults, people with visual impairments. We have over 8,000 people in our society right now. And if that doesn't interest you, that's a-okay. If it does, just go to exceptionaleducators.us. We've got some fun freebies we can give you. We've got a teacher quiz there, as well as 5 simple ways that you can increase the independence of your children, students with visual impairments. But if not, no worries, like and subscribe as always, so that way you can be on the forefront of the most cutting edge information. I always share 21st century expanded core teaching techniques to help you increase the academic and daily living skills of your students with visual impairments. So until next week, I hope that you can use this information to help you take a step forward in becoming a better caregiver or teacher or just person in the world. Share it with all of your friends and other people who might find this information valuable. And until next week, I'll talk to you later.